Thanks, Marissa, for that introduction, and thanks to everyone for joining us today on our webinar to talk about moving Oracle workloads to Google Cloud. We're having this webinar today for the simple fact that our customers keep asking us about Google Cloud. So we thought we would talk to the experts and bring in some folks from Google to talk to us. So I'm really happy to be joined by my friend Gurmeet Goindi, Group Product Manager from Google. So welcome, Gigi, to our first webinar together.
Thanks a lot, Greg. It's a great opportunity to be with you.
Thank you. So for those that don't know me, I'm the CEO and founder of Palisade Compliance. I've been in the Oracle ecosystem now for about 26 years. I started with Oracle in September of '95 and was there for 16 years, running their contracts and business practices and compliance organizations. And then I left to start Palisade. And for the last 10 years, I've been sitting on the other side of the table, helping customers with those same challenges I might have helped create while I was there at Oracle. And Gigi, again, welcome. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your experience both at Google and Oracle?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, Craig. We have not only doing this webinar, but helping all our customers over the years as we bring their Oracle workloads to Google Cloud. A bit about myself, Gurmeet Goindi. I go by Gigi. I've been a product manager at Google Cloud Databases. I focus on databases and our multi-cloud strategy for databases again. Been in the Valley for over 20 years, doing all sorts of roles you can think of, engineering management and product management. Been with Oracle prior to joining Google, and prior to that, I was at NetApp. What really excites me about this seminar is a lot of our customers that we work with have substantial amount of transactional databases that are running on Oracle's technology, and they want to find the best possible home for this, for their workloads. They want to build new experiences with Google. They want to build, they want to benefit from all the AI ML capabilities Google have, but they still have some estate that's sitting on an Oracle database. Our joint effort with Craig is to make them successful, make them happy, and help them serve their customers better. Back to you, Craig.
You know, it's interesting as we talk to clients around whatever we want to call it, move to the cloud, digital transformation, however we phrase it, there's always the technical aspect of moving that data or building those new environments or creating that new experience. But then there's also the part that I think sometimes, at least in our little world, that they forget about is that they still have all these Oracle contracts and Oracle licenses, and it could be any vendor where you're making a transition, and you sort of have to manage those as well as you are moving forward. You can't forget what was behind you, and I think that's where you mentioned we've been working together, whether it's your clients are moving to Google Cloud and they have some questions around their Oracle contracts, or our clients already have questions around their Oracle contracts and are looking for alternatives and different cloud providers. So I think it's a nice synergy. And I think it's something that people have to remember. It's not either or, it's the technical and the contractual and the business side of it. You need to plan both of those to have a successful transition. So Gigi, when people come to us, they typically have an Oracle problem. At Palisade, we don't get the happy Oracle customer who loves the products and loves their strategy and feels like they're being treated well. They're usually in an audit, or they have a compliance problem, or they feel like they're spending too much money, or things like that. So I know my view of the world is a little skewed because we get customers who are not happy Oracle customers. And I know there are a lot of happy Oracle customers. They love Oracle database, they love the technology, and they want to be able to use it wherever they want to use it, not necessarily where Oracle wants them to use it. But these are the three questions that we always get from clients who are looking in many respects, it's not just Google Cloud, it's other clouds as well, but I think it's a little amplified. I think Google and Oracle have had some tension over the last few years. So there's some amplification of things that may or may not be the most accurate by Oracle salespeople, right? So we get customers all the time who come in. First question, my Oracle sales rep says I can't run Oracle on Google Cloud because it's not an authorized cloud provider. And we constantly trying to tell people that I understand what the Oracle salesperson is saying and I understand why they're saying it, but that's not in your contracts. And actually, you can run Oracle in any cloud, including the Google Cloud, unless there's some language in those documents that say you can't run in Google Cloud, which I've never seen before, right? In the thousands of agreements that I've looked at. So are people running Oracle in Google Cloud? I mean, I saw something from Gartner that Google is now in the top quadrant now, right? So you're sort of one of the top 3 players in the cloud area. So how many customers are moving to Google Cloud? What's been your experience, at least Oracle customers?
A great question. And in my prior role and current role, I get to see both the happy Oracle customers and sometimes not so happy customers, and we love them all. Customers are running Oracle in Google Cloud, specifically with our bare metal solutions and our Google Cloud VMware engine. We have dozens of successful customers here with all sorts of workloads. I'll talk some about it in the session with you, Craig. Some of the largest OLTP or transactional marketplace type offerings, some of the very high transactional banking applications. Customers are bringing all sorts of workloads, trading platforms to our Oracle offering. And what we have done over the past is to build a platform which is as similar to the platform they are running today. And on top of that, add the goodness of Google Cloud. Happy to go in detail as we go through this session.
Well, yeah, I think we've got some more slides later on where we talk about some of the differences or the specialties around Google and why people are asking for it. But I'm a little biased here because I know Palisade, we actually use Google Cloud too. So we're running on Google Cloud. So we know that it works. Now you mentioned a few different environments, bare metal and the VMware environment. I know there's other sort of Google Cloud environments, and again, we're getting questions around where can I run my Oracle, and when we point them to Google, we're pointing them to all of those environments because what we want them to be able to do is pick the technical solution that works best for them, whatever that is, and we don't give sort of recommendations like you should use this one or that one. We just are always trying to get people to explore those options. We'll take care of the contracts, we'll take care of the licensing. There's always a path. Have you seen anyone, is anyone deciding not to run on Google because they're just scared of Oracle? Are people finding sort of the path forward, or I'm sure your clients are coming to you saying, hey, Oracle's doing this, Oracle's saying that. How do you manage that?
Yeah, once in a while, we do see customers anchoring towards their current relationships with a legacy vendor, and which is fine too. It's wherever the customer thinks is the best for his workload. But rarely we see customers coming to us and saying, hey, we do not want to go to Google Cloud because our contracts are limiting us, or we are getting threatened by, or I think threatened is a very strong word. We are getting pushback from the Oracle sales team. And in most of these cases, Craig, as you know, you help us out and help customers understand their options better. We have all the technical solutions that a customer needs to run the Oracle database, and then some. And from that perspective, it's a very solid platform, and we are seeing the proofs in the pudding. We are seeing successful customers on it. And as far as the legal and the contracts goes, I think you are our expert to go to.
Right. Well, and it's when we think about can Oracle run on Google Cloud? Obviously the answer is yes, it can. Your contracts almost assuredly you can with your license agreements. There are some caveats around unlimited license agreements, but those are things that end at some point, and there's always a way out of them. So we've sort of seen that path, but it seems to be like, and I know this is the world that I live in. There's just a lot of confusion around Oracle licensing and contracts and things like that. So Oracle's goal here is that you move to Oracle's cloud, right? They're not interested in helping you move to Google Cloud. So I think, one of the lessons learned for folks who are listening here is if you're going to your Oracle rep and asking them, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? They're going to give you answers that best align with their goals, which is, well, you should really do it this way or should really do it that way. And I think different Oracle sales reps sort of, maybe not threaten, but push it, like you said. I think pushing is a good word, stronger, more strongly than other Oracle sales reps will push it and leave that impression that folks can't do things. The second question we get is around support. And I'm not going to go into all the details here because there's the idea of a certified platform. There's the idea of a authorized cloud environment. And then there's the idea of, will Oracle support me? So my feedback for folks, and I know Oracle issued a support memo back in December of last year or November of last year, is that yes, Oracle will indeed support you on the Google Cloud. And my opinion is they're going to support you in any iteration of the Google Cloud that you move to, much the same way that Oracle has supported customers for many years in a virtualized environment, where they will provide the support, and on the off chance that you're logging a ticket for the first time and Oracle's only seen that issue, has never seen that issue before, they might ask you to reproduce it in another environment, right? Which is, again, in 10 years at Palisade, I've never had a customer tell me, hey, I couldn't get support on a cloud environment from Oracle. Now, they might have issues with the quality of Oracle support in general, but it's nothing to do with their cloud environment and absolutely nothing to do with being on Google. But so have you heard anything from your clients who are running on Google Cloud about their experience with Oracle support? Is Oracle taking their tickets and sort of providing that service to them?
All our customers whom we talked to have told us that they had no issues getting support from Oracle for the issues they found in this environment. And being a technologist, how I see it is, when you run either on the couple of environments you talked about, there's not a single line of code that's different, that executes differently on BMS or GCV as it would have done on your on-premises environment. So it's the exact same code path that a database takes, whether you're running on your homegrown do-it-yourself infrastructure or GCV or BMS solutions.
Right.
So in that sense, it's very, very identical. And we haven't heard any complaints from any of our customers that they have issues with getting support from Oracle.
I'm sure customers are not necessarily happy with Oracle support all the time, but it probably would have been the same thing if they were on premise, right? I always tell people, I'm not telling you Oracle's going to give you great support. You're going to get the same support as if you were on premise, if you're in the Google Cloud. So you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing.
So, I mean, there must, and again, I think this goes back to before when we were talking about Oracle's goals, right? If there's, to sort of use the language that you use, from a technical perspective, it's the exact same code, it's the exact same path. There must be a different reason other than the technology as to why Oracle sort of puts out statements like this, right? They must have another goal in mind. And I'll speak to that. I won't put you on the spot. But for me, whether, they used to do this with VMware, they changed that policy a few years ago. But for years, it was they did that on the virtualized environment because they wanted people to use Oracle VM. Same thing here, right? They're doing this not, Gigi, like you said, not because there's a technical difference, not because it's any harder to support those clients. But for me, again, it's what's Oracle's goal is to move you to Oracle Cloud, sort of reduce the benefit, try to reduce the perceived benefits of these other cloud providers like Google Cloud. But again, I've talked to dozens of customers over the last 6 months about support in the cloud and support in Google Cloud. And it's the same answer. And I always advise customers, roll it out, log a ticket, see what happens, right? Log some tickets and see what the response will be. Because then you get the conversation away from what the Oracle sales rep is telling me, and you get to the reality of the support you're going to receive. What about, and this probably will lead into the next slide. The last question we get is about compliance and contracts and Google Cloud. And since I've been working with your team for a while, I sort of know a little bit of the answer, but you guys have built a bare metal service that sort of gets rid of, and I think the issue with compliance in the cloud, and I'm not going to go super into detail with this, is around virtualization, is how do you count cores, how do you count processors? And I'll just, on my side, I know that we've been successful getting Oracle contracts renegotiated so that we can count cores and processors in any sort of environment, whether it's a bare metal environment or a highly virtualized environment. But for those customers who might not have that language, and they're sort of worried about Oracle audits and compliance, you guys have built bare metal. And I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why you built the bare metal, is that the fact that you can tell customers there's a way to count licensing on that.
Yeah, true that. So what we did with bare metal is we spec'd out one of the industry's best general purpose hardware that you can buy to run an Oracle database. We partnered with our favorite storage vendor, NetApp, to give us a very performance-tuned with a high SLA storage solution that makes a database happy, and give a single tenant environment for a customer. So for the servers that a customer uses to run the Oracle database, they're the only tenant on it, and they have full access to their storage array. So that gives them a very crisp boundary of where the Oracle estate runs. Very similar to a closet in their own data center, but the secret sauce here being we connect this closet to our very highly available super fast interconnect, and then you can see all the databases that you're running in this environment in Google Cloud.
Now, before I go to the next slide, because I know you've got more detail on bare metal, did you say happy database before? It makes the database happy?
It does, because what databases want is a solid compute platform and a storage that responds to their needs when they need it. Right?
I just never heard of someone talk about databases that way. That's awesome. I love it. We have to have happy databases. You could put that in your marketing. We make databases happy. I love it. So let's talk about that, because again, that's, when customers come to us and when they want to know about sort of different clouds and they're just worried about this virtualization issue, as Oracle customers should take it into account. You do have this offering. So I know we've talked to customers about this one in particular. So let me, if I can go to the next slide. I had a conversation with a VP at Oracle Cloud a few weeks ago, and I was asking him, what's your strategy? Like, I know you are pushing Oracle Cloud. And he said, well, we've got all these legacy license holders, and we want to move them onto OCI. And eventually we want to have them to give up their Oracle licenses and go to a complete Oracle SaaS solution. So they're really locked in, right? Because you think about, as long as you have your own licenses, you can go where you want. I think that's just having customers move to Oracle Cloud and then get rid of their licenses is, listen, it's a good strategy for Oracle. I don't know if it's a good strategy for Oracle clients, but What's Google's cloud strategy when you look at your clients? What do you want your customers and clients to do with your cloud services?
Wonderful. So Google is a slightly different take on when it comes to building cloud services. We yearn to be the open cloud in which we have open interfaces, we have open APIs, customers can come to our cloud if they choose to, and they can take their entire data set to another cloud if we are not able to deliver to our promise. But at the end of the day, we really believe in respecting the user's choice to pick the right platform for their need. We want to be the best choice when it comes to technology, when it comes to how well we can service their needs, when it comes to how better we can provide support and how guaranteed our SLAs are. We want to deliver on that. But when it comes to building open interfaces, we want to lead with that. And we want customers to choose us because we are good at it,
Right.
not choose us because they have to.
Choose this because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah.
I like
and,
that.
One very interesting thing we did with even Oracle, if you see what Google is really good at is what they have done with the Kubernetes environment, and GKE is a testament to that. And but the database piece has not followed the containerization story at the same pace. So what we did is we wrote the world's first Kubernetes operator for Oracle and open sourced it. So any Oracle customer who wants to run an Oracle database in any Kubernetes environment, whether it will be GKE, or whether it is in Amazon, or whether it is in OCI, or is it their own on-premises, they can use this. And they can contribute to it. If they think we have missed a feature, we will add it to it. If they develop a feature, they can add it to it too. And so it's a very community-driven approach to this. In fact, talking about open source, for Oracle Bare Metal, we developed a toolkit that allows customers to deploy databases, and we open source that as well. So they can take our toolkit and drop it in their existing Terraform tooling, or take a queue format that, hey, this is how we can do it, so let's build it similar to that, or test it out. So that's our goal here, just give maximum flexibility to our customers.
That is a very different approach to open source than Oracle has, because Oracle has, as you know, being at Google, some open source products that they like to charge for and sort of lock out, I think, some of the community. So that's really good to know. This is a little more detail about what you were talking about before, if you want to go into a little more of the benefits of bare metal.
Yes. So I'll build just a little bit more on what we talked about. So we took the state-of-the-art infrastructure that you can buy, put it inside our region extensions. Our region extensions are, say, extended data center space, which is not Google owned, not Google contracted. It's owned, operated by a third party, and we spec what goes in it. And we integrate the networking aspects and the security aspects of that infrastructure with ours. So no different than, say, running a database on premises and connecting to an application in Google Cloud. But in this case, you're running much closer in a much well-defined prescriptive hardware, well-defined prescriptive storage performance, and an SLA around top of on the uptime of the hardware and storage. That allows you to run all Oracle options that you run today on premises, what you have access to. You can keep your run books the same. You can keep your support books the same. You can have your same DBA teams. You can have the same SIs. They will have to do less work and the systems will work better, but you can still keep the same all the investment that you have made. Almost all our regions, you can connect to this within typically under a millisecond, but our contractor assurance is under 2 milliseconds. You will be able to talk to any Google application with this database. We provide the billing. We have support for infrastructure. Actually, we also have a specialized consultative Oracle support team. So say if you have your databases running slowly or you're hitting an application issue, you can call our consultative support team. They are ex-Oracle ACE directors and very knowledgeable Oracle people. They'll help you debug the issue. They will tell you how to log a bug with Oracle, what logs they will need, just to cut down the time it will take to resolution. And this is all a Google first-party service. You get all the benefits as a Google first-party service from a compliance perspective, a security perspective, a billing perspective, and you have one throat to choke, and that's fine.
When I was at Oracle, we weren't allowed to say one throat to choke anymore. We had to say that we were one back to pat.
Let's say one hand to shake here.
Okay, because the edicts came down from high, like we don't want the visual of people choking Oracle salespeople's necks. The other thing we weren't allowed to say was eat your own dog food. We couldn't say we eat our own dog food. We had to say we drink our own champagne. So.
Oh, that's nice. I like the tone of that. Yeah. So there's one hand to shake, and that's ours. So we take care of databases end to end.
So that's awesome. So if I can just ask a few questions about this, because I actually just learned a bunch of things. I didn't realize you have your own support staff who help with issues that may arise. I think that is something, now that I know that, when the next customer comes and asks me about Google Cloud, I can mention that to them. So I think that's a really strong benefit, it sounds like, to using Google Cloud, to have access to those people.
Yeah, and if you think, Craig, people like to bring their mission critical applications to Google. And if it's a mission critical application, it's critical for the customer to feel that they're taken care of, right? And for that, you need deep expertise in the application stack and the Oracle stack to cut down their time to resolution. Right? They can call Oracle support, and then it can go many ways, like, oh, upload this log, and then they come back and upload that log, and then they come back. So it's better if we take a first stab and say, hey, we think the problem is here. You upload these logs and these reports and file your bug with this statement to Oracle, and you will get a quicker response.
Interesting. That's great. And then the other thing that I see up here is that RAC. So you have clients using RAC, because that's another question we get all the time is, I'm not allowed to use RAC in the cloud. So you've got clients using RAC?
Yeah, I think the majority of our clients have have cluster databases and built on RAC. If you, again, I'm taking a technology viewpoint here. If you see the two technologies that RAC needs to provide a better service is ability to do multicast on a private network and ability to have a dedicated storage environment where they can use to tie break their IOs. And we provide both of them. In fact, whenever a customer deploys an Oracle RAC, he gets a dedicated private network for the RAC traffic, which supports all possible networking technologies that they need to support RAC. And second, the storage is deployed as per NetApp's and Oracle's best practices, following Oracle's MAA guidelines. So you get the right experience as you expect from Oracle RAC, MAA being maximum availability architecture guidelines from Oracle.
So this is really interesting, because I think a lot of folks come into the conversations with us and they say, well, I know I cannot use RAC in the cloud, but, and I know we'll walk them back from that a little bit. So it's great to know that like you said, the majority have cluster databases and using that functionality. So I think this is a good transition, perhaps, Gigi, if you just want to talk about, some of your client experiences and sort of what folks are doing, just so people on the line here can see, practical examples of how clients are moving to Google Cloud.
Cool. I'll spend like a minute on each use case, Craig, and just give a flavor of what people are doing with us. So what we have seen over my 2 years at Google, there's an acceleration in our customer base to build newer experiences on modern scale-out databases. But at the same time, today they run a big portion on their database estate on legacy engines, and they want a bridge how they can seamlessly transition their existing apps to a newer platform, at the same time accelerate the experiences they're building on the newer platform. One key example in this is one of the world's largest travel companies that we are working with, who has migrated thousands of transactional databases to Google Cloud. A lot of them are Oracle, a lot of them are Postgres, a lot of them are MySQL, and they use our Cloud SQL product, and they're building a whole new experience on Cloud Spanner, and they have migrated thousands of cores and petabytes of databases, Oracle databases, to bare metal. So this is a complete win for our data strategy, in which they are using all aspects of Google Cloud, not just one solution. Why did they choose us? The things that they really like about bare metal is they have really demanding workloads, and we can support giving them state-of-the-art hardware. Second, they want to have guaranteed storage performance, which we can give them as well. And second, third, but the most important, they want the freedom to modernize at their own pace and benefit from the larger Google ecosystem. And our strategy of pick the best platform for your workload helps them and puts them on their own pace to come to Google Cloud and modernize their workloads.
That freedom piece is, like you said, probably the most important. That's where we see the most frustration is, it's not like people hate Oracle products. They just want to use the Oracle when they need them, or pay for Oracle when they use them. They don't want to have to pay for things they're not using that they're not using. They just want that flexibility. I think freedom. And when we talk about our company Palisade, we always talk about taking back control, giving people freedom from a licensing perspective. And I think that's the thing that, gets people angry more than anything else, is when they're locked into something they know is not the best thing for them, but they have to use it because they're stuck behind some contract or licensing agreement that prevents them from doing what's best for their company.
Indeed. I'll change geographies and we'll talk about a really regulated industry, banking in Europe. So if you see the next slide, we're working with a leading German bank. Same situation. They want to modernize their different marketplace, different workloads, but same bigger goal. They want to build differentiated experiences with Google Cloud, though they still have some databases running on Oracle. So we moved over 100 plus mission critical databases to Google Cloud in under 3 months on a bare metal solution. We deployed Oracle's maximum availability architecture across 2 sites, gave them all the data residency needs that European bank needs, gave them all the regulatory compliance that they need to function as a bank. And at the same time, they are modernizing their applications one app at a time and building new experiences using a Cloud SQL product.
We see a lot of hesitancy from the highly regulated industries for cloud adoption. Even working with us, sometimes we've got to go through all these security protocols, whether it's just sharing agreements or sharing, what they're doing with their databases and everything like that. So I would imagine that they put you guys through the ringer when it comes to testing and security, and like there can't be a breach for a bank.
Yeah, and that's the benefit that comes from the broader Google ecosystem. I think Google really understands what security and privacy means for data. And it has worked in the regulatory space for many, many years. We benefit from Google's understanding of data center operations and understanding of data center security. to build the bare metal solution here.
Right, right. So the examples that you're giving, all three are bare metal, correct?
The first one is everything. The second is bare metal, and the third is bare metal and Spanner.
Excellent.
So a leading ticketing marketplace moved their probably 100 core Oracle RAG database, even more than that, to bare metal. This is runs their mission critical database, and they're actively replatforming the same database to Spanner. So their app can still stay up, and they can run their canaries, and they can run their tested code, and gradually, in a phased manner, migrate from Oracle RAG to Spanner. And the Spanner gives you all the 5.9 availability. You never have to think about patching or downtime and scale. In ticketing marketplace, scales is big. So right now, say, the concert season is not that much given the global situation, but as the pandemic eases, you will see a spur in marketplace activity for concerts and games and whatnot. And Spanner gives them the scale to scale up on demand, only pay for the scale up, then scale down on demand, and get the financial benefit for not using the services when you don't need them.
Well, I can tell you that we have started to go to concerts and baseball games again. So you're absolutely right,
Yeah.
which is my first one last week. So this is interesting because here's an example where, if a customer, they want to migrate away from Oracle RAC databases, let's say, to Spanner, and they're using the cloud as a way to sort of facilitate that move. I would imagine that if you are in Oracle Cloud, it'd be really difficult to move away from Oracle products, right? They're not going to facilitate that, but it's another example of what you said before in terms of the freedom, right? Whether you want to stick with Oracle, great. You want to move away from Oracle, great. You don't have a dog in that race. So you just want to help them go where they need to go.
Yeah, and we just want them to have a differentiated experience when they come to Google Cloud. Like you said, we want to keep the databases happy, whether it's Oracle or Postgres, we are okay with it.
I don't know. Do you know that guy, Bob Ross, the painter who did the happy trees?
Yeah.
You're like the database painter, happy little databases all over the place. I love it. It's awesome. Okay, so I think now we've gone through sort of the strategy, how Oracle is working with their clients and sort of pushing them to the Oracle infrastructure. We've talked about the issues that our clients come to us when they are looking at moving, about support and licensing and compliance and all that fun stuff. We've got some great examples here. We talked about bare metal, got some details, got some great examples of customers who are making the move. So I think now is a great time for us to actually take questions from the audience. So if you've had questions and you put them in the chat, we'll read them now, but you still have an opportunity to ask more questions. So let's do that.
We have one, and it's on support. So the question is it fair to summarize that you see customers do in fact get support? This is from Oracle. Even though Oracle may say they do not support Oracle on GCP, does Oracle say that they will not support Oracle and GCP in writing, like in contracts? This person just wants clarity on that, because roll it out and log a ticket and let's see might cause the customer exec to be reluctant or fearful.
Sure. So, and I'll take this one, Gigi, if you don't mind. We do not see Oracle putting that into contracts. Actually, I've never seen an Oracle contract that said that Oracle will not support, whether it's Google Cloud or any other cloud, right? So their contracts are typically silent on that. There is an Oracle support document out there, 2688.277.1, where it specifically states that Oracle will provide support to customers using a third-party cloud in the following manner. So if executives are a little concerned about getting support from Oracle, you can refer them to that document. That's also the document that Oracle salespeople try to use to say that support will be different, you won't get support. It's very similar, like we said, to what Oracle used to do with VMware, and people rolled it out all the time. So I would actually point to your agreements saying there's nothing in there that says Oracle won't support you in the cloud. And then I would look at Oracle's support policies to show that you would actually get support. The comfort that is often required, Oracle's never going to make it easy. Oracle salespeople who are trying to get you to move to different products are never really going to help you do that. So looking for a positive statement from Oracle is probably not going to happen. You definitely need to read your contracts and look through those policies.
Our next question is, can you provide any clarity on Oracle licensing beyond bare metal on GCE? Twice on vCPU versus on-prem processor license and GCVE.
We look at it the same way you would license on-premise, and that is always to look at your agreements first. So there is a processor definition in your agreements that talks about how to measure usage. And if you let Oracle try to create new rules and things that are not in your agreements, it has nothing to do with GCVE or any other cloud environment. Oracle will try to expand the number of licenses you need for any environment, whether you're on-premise or cloud. So yeah, there's lots of clarity. We would need to look at those agreements, see what language is in there, and then look at exactly how you've deployed to sort of Google Cloud, not bare metal, to come up with a license position. Again, it's very similar with support. Oracle will try to claim the largest footprint possible. That has nothing to do with cloud. It's just Oracle behavior, and we're always pointing people back to their agreements with Oracle.
Our next question, for replatforming from Oracle to Spanner or Cloud's QL, customers are facing the pain about rewriting all the applications which were connected to Oracle before. How do you cater to this?
So within Google, we have a whole program that helps you assess your database estate, and which also helps you figure out what the core dependencies of PL/SQL for your particular applications are. In some cases, it's a rewrite. In some cases, you need to look for an alternative. In some cases, Oracle is your best choice. So we are here to support all those motions, and feel free to reach out to us or our local team in your region, and we'll be able to walk you through what's our plan or what's the product offering we have to help you migrate off your legacy Oracle workloads to modern Postgres or Spanner or other cloud native experiences. You're absolutely right. In some cases, it's not easy to do, but in most cases, it doesn't take a lot to do it either. All you need is a set of tools, a set of expertise that can help you walk you through this process.
Our next question, besides Oracle Hypervisor, what are some other hypervisors offered, like VMware? Also, is sole tenant node supported for multiple Oracle databases?
So we do offer a fully managed VMware offering under the Google Cloud VMware Engine, which you can use to run Oracle databases. Or if you prefer to use Oracle VM, you can install that on bare metal solution. And in both cases, I can speak more. In both cases, you get to sole ownership of your VMware cluster or your OLVM cluster, and you can bring multiple databases in that system, though you'll have to license for the entire system, as in with any other Oracle licensing product. And Craig can help us better understand the licensing nuance of this. But you do get, each deployment gives you your dedicated cluster, your dedicated infrastructure.
Speaking of Oracle licenses, we have a question. If I'm paying for 100 Oracle licenses on-prem, does that mean I also need 100 licenses on Google Cloud?
Great question. And in general, we believe that your licensing rules are the same, whether you're on-prem, in the cloud, on bare metal or virtualized. There's no, unless your contract says something different, unless your contract says this is how you apply licenses in the cloud, we always look, well, we always look to the contract, but we always keep our guidance exactly the same. And we've been doing this now for 10 years. So that guidance hasn't changed. I will say, a lot of this depends on what your agreements say and which Google Cloud you're moving to and how you're going to deploy it. So we do have a mechanism. Google is sponsoring, so I don't have to keep saying it depends. Google is sponsoring Palisade engagements for anyone who's attending this webinar. If you're interested in learning more about your Oracle licensing to help you move to Google Cloud, you just need to contact your Google Cloud salesperson. And then we could dig into the details, right? We could look at those agreements. We could discuss how you're planning on deploying to Google Cloud from a licensing perspective and give you that guidance. But again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, we always go back to your agreements. We go back to those processor definitions. We go back to those core factor tables that are in your contracts. If you have a ULA, we'll look at some of the certification language about deploying and certifying in the cloud. And that's what really applies. All this other stuff that's out there that Oracle puts out and says it's for educational purposes only, and it's not part of your agreement, that's noise, right? And we have to contend with that. And sometimes that's good noise for you, and sometimes it's not. But in the end, your contracts are king, and even Oracle knows that.
Do you have any best practices to share with us to decide the sizing for various options?
So feel free to go to our databases page in Google Cloud and click on the BMS link, and that'll walk you through all the shapes and sizes we offer. We also have third-party storage benchmarking that helps you what kind of storage need you will have. And if you're anytime in doubt, reach out to our sales executives and we'll help you with your exact sizing need. Probably we are one of the only cloud providers that provide dedicated hardware starting from an 8-core machine to all the way to a 4-socket 112-core machine. So no matter what workload you have, we'll have a home for it.
Do I have to procure Oracle licenses based on the physical cores present on BMS, or would I have the flexibility of procuring Oracle licenses for only the number of cores that would be used?
Well, it's my understanding, E.G., you tell me, when they procure from Google Bare Metal, it's their box, right? That's the client's box, and there's sort of other clients. So you would use the whole box and you would license the whole box.
Yeah. This box is also certified to run Oracle VM as per the Oracle hardware compatibility list. So whatever licensing policies that apply for Oracle VM should apply here as well. I believe Oracle VM, well, Oracle licensing always evolves. So this is a point in time statement. So Oracle VM does support some kind of hard partitioning and soft partitionings, which I'm not the expert of. But whatever Oracle VM supports, this is a certified server as per Oracle VM's hardware compatibility list. Hence, all Oracle VM's licensing policy will apply here. Craig?
That's correct. So whether we call it OVM or KVM, or no, Oracle's changed the names there. There's other partitioning technologies that Oracle says you don't have to license the whole box. So you can micro partition. But again, as it would be on premise, that's how it would be in Google Bare Metal.
Everything we've been talking about, moving our Oracle workloads to Google Cloud, does this actually include PeopleSoft applications?
Yeah, so when it comes to applications, all Oracle applications that you run today on your on-premise environment, you can move either to a VMware environment or to our BMS environment. And in many cases, your homegrown applications, you can move them as is to a GCE environment. When it comes to PeopleSoft, you can definitely bring PeopleSoft to Google Cloud. We see a lot of PeopleSoft customers replatforming to a SaaS-based solution. But we do see some legacy deployments of PeopleSoft moving to Google Cloud.
Our next question. Outside of VMware Engine and bare metal solution, can Oracle customers run Oracle on GCE and still be compliant and get support from Oracle?
Yes, absolutely. And I think we break this down into two separate questions. Let's start with the second part, which is support. So Oracle has support, a support policy for all clouds, not just Google Cloud. So whatever support you're getting on AWS or Azure, you'll get the same level of support from Oracle. I'm not saying it's going to be great support. I'm saying you're going to get the same Oracle support you would get anywhere else, even on premise. So absolutely, you'll get support from Oracle. There's been a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of folks saying that Oracle won't support certain cloud environments, but that's just not the case. And then can you run on GCE and still be in compliant? Again, absolutely. It's just like running on a virtualized environment on-prem. It's just like running in any other cloud. What we always point people to are their contracts with Oracle. So we look back at processor definitions and core factor tables that are in your agreements, and that's really what applies. There's lots of other stuff out there. There are these policies that are not part of your contract for educational purposes only, and we treat them the same for every client. Focus on your contracts and not roadblocks that people are throwing in front of you, as whether you're rolling out virtualized on-prem or you're rolling into a cloud environment.
Our next question, can you share information where we might be able to find best practices when moving to when moving Oracle workload to Google GCP?
Happy to. Go to Oracle, search for Oracle Bare Metal Solution on Google, and that will land you up to our Bare Metal Solution product page, and you'll see all the information there. If you don't see what you're looking for, there is a contact us button. Just click on it, and I'll be happy to respond to you.
Our next question, are there any performance benchmark comparisons of workloads on Exadata versus GCP BMS?
Great question. So we did extensive evaluation for TPCC type workloads and TPC edge type workloads. And we'll be happy to share with you how well do they compare to your particular environment. Some of our customers look into partners like Bluent and how they can move the Exadata data warehouse to BigQuery. Some of our customers use Exadata as a consolidation environment in which there are many other databases that can be replatformed to BMS. And in the process of replatforming to BMS, they can be replatformed to something more modern like Postgres or more user-friendly like Postgres. And we have a dedicated team working with our customers on that. Feel free to reach out to your Google Cloud salesperson and look for modernizing your database team, and they'll be happy to help you how to get the right outcome for the databases that you're running on Exadata today.
Where does GCP fall into the Oracle core factor table?
Okay, I'll take a stab and then I'll pass it to Craig.
Go for it.
For the BMS solution, we use the standard x86 servers, which are on the hardware compatibility list, certified by Oracle to run their operating system and virtualization products. So we inherit the x86 core factor as you would have for on-premises. The same is true for our VMware environments. And I'll pass it on to Craig, who probably knows a lot more about this than I will ever will.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head there, Gigi. And that's one of the reasons why I think, we're having this webinar, because people keep coming to Palisade asking about Google Cloud. I think that's one of the reasons why, because it was specifically built, especially bare metal, to take on some Oracle workloads. So using hardware, a hardware stack that is easily licensable, I think is really important. So again, and probably the third time I've said this, you can find what hardware your Oracle workloads are running in Google Cloud. And then we just go right back to the core factor tables that are in your agreements with Oracle. And that's the proper way to license.
Can Oracle customers deploy on the ordinary GCP virtual servers, not BMS? And how can they count their license usage?
like Craig mentioned in the support note that Oracle issued earlier, Oracle will treats all the third-party code, all the non-Oracle clouds equally in the sense of how they can deploy Oracle technology and get support for it. How they get certified is where Craig can help you answer that part.
Yeah, so again, the licensing, there's very few Oracle agreements that I've seen which specifically limit your ability to deploy in the cloud. The one notable exception are Oracle ULAs. And those contracts have changed over time. Everyone is a little different. You know, there's Oracle has lots of lawyers and they all like to look at these ULAs before they go out the door. So you'll never find two ULAs that look exactly alike. But there's typically language in these documents that talk about certifying in the cloud and counting in the cloud. And I think what we've seen recently is Oracle putting more and more language in there because it seems like customers are really pushing to be able to count and certify in the cloud. So again, look for a prohibition on licensing or deploying in the cloud. If that's not there, then we go back to core factor tables and licensing like that. And it really depends on how you've deployed it. Again, whether you're on premise using VMware or you're using Google Cloud in a virtualized environment, we would need to look at exactly how you've deployed it to understand the licensing. But the simple answer is yes, you can deploy, yes, you will get support, and yes, you can count and measure your licensing.
Can we put virtualization on top of the bare metal solution?
Oh, I can take that, yes. In fact, out of the box experience, we do support OVM and OLVM, in which since the infrastructure that we use is certified to run OLVM and OVM, you can install that and you can inherit all the licensing policies that OLVM and OVM has along with it. And actually, some of our customers do use OLVM and OVM on it, and we found quite a few interesting nuances that we had to tune in their product, but it works very well on a platform.
Great. Thank you, Gigi, and thank you, Craig. It looks like those were all of our questions for today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marissa, for your support in getting this off the ground. We really appreciate it. And Gigi, thank you again for your support and partnership here. I just want to let everyone know, if you've stayed till the end here, that you know, Palisade and Google have a program where we want to help you as you move to the cloud. So if you're interested in getting help from Palisade Compliance to review your contracts and talk to you more about licensing and getting support from Oracle, Google is graciously funding a program where we can get in there and help you. For more information on that, please just contact your Google Sales Cloud salesperson, your client executive, and they will be able to hook you up with the program, and we can get started really answering a lot of these questions in more detail, right? A lot of these questions are, look at your contracts, how are you deploying, but Palisade, we can get in there really deep and help you in that journey to get through the Oracle licensing and contracting. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Gigi. Thanks, Marissa. Good luck with Oracle, everybody. We'll see you soon.